Hi, welcome to Astrology for Gann Traders. My name is Olga Morales. Today I'm going to have a quick look at the Aries Ingress for 2018, as I do every year, and the other ingresses. We remember that these seasonal dates are very important for Gann analysis, and he highly stressed looking at these times of the year. So let's get started. This is a panel from the Temple of Hathor at Dandara. It has a ceiling full of astrological symbolism, and it was the most amazing experience. Looking up at the ceiling, you actually do get a very sore neck. It's very high up, so I was able to get some amazing photographs, and we can see that here we have the Ram Aries starting this whole panel, surrounded by stars and all the attendants. So they have these 3 attendants to each sign. And that comes in with the deacons, which I've spoken about in my book, but I will be talking more about that in my new book. So let's get started. Whoops, sorry. Aries Ingress. Now, in mundane astrologers, they're the ones who forecast world events, use the cardinal ingresses, so we're looking at the equinoxes and the solstice, to forecast on world events for each quarter of the year. The cardinal ingress points are our seasonal dates: 21st of March, 21st of June, 23rd of September, and the 23rd of December, based on the declination of the Sun, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. They're our cardinal signs. The Aries Ingress is believed to be the most important ingress, as it describes the whole year ahead for the world at large, and is called the world axis. When the northbound Sun crosses the equator at the equinox on the 21st or 22nd of March in the zodiac sign of Aries, the beginning of the year was celebrated and a new cycle was set in motion. The ancients believed that the world horoscope began when all the planets were aligned in Aries. Therefore, the Aries point is like a node of the Earth and the Sun. Now, most of you already know, been following me, or my students know that I'm a cosmobiologist, and this whole seasonal and mid-season alignments or shape is so evident when you put it on a 90-degree dial. So we can see that the ingresses, the cardinal ingresses, all begin at 0 degrees, because this is all cardinal. So we've got Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. The next 30, we have the fixed signs: Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. And the third zone is a mutable area. We get Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Now, across the dial, anything across the dial has to be an increment of 45 degrees, because it's half of the 90. And exactly opposite the 0 degrees of the cardinal ingresses, we have the 15 degrees of the fixed signs. And that's 45, 135, 225, and 315. These is all to do with the beasts, the 4 beasts in the Bible. Okay, they're the 4 beasts, are all the fixed signs that you see always surrounding Jesus in a lot of architecture or in churches. I've taken quite a few pictures of that, and I've shown you before. So in the Uranian system, all the cardinal signs join at 0 degrees, as I said. But can you see that the cardinal signs are on the opposite side of mutable? They're equal distance. They mirror image one another, whereas the fixed signs mirror image have to be the same, fixed. Okay, so the shadows, the mirror imaging is called Antisha. It's an ancient system or shadow image cast by the planet at the same degree from the solstice points, either Cancer or Capricorn. And so it's basically a midpoint structure. That's where the whole midpoint thing has sort of arisen through these old systems, and also with the Arabic parts. Okay, so the Antisha signs are also called beholding signs. So Aries is a mirror to Virgo, Taurus to Leo, Gemini to Cancer, Scorpio to Aquarius, and Sagittarius to Capricorn. So you can see that the mutable signs, cardinal mirror image to mutable, and fixed has to be mirror image to itself, the fixed signs. So remembering Gann's seasonal dates, We start in figuring seasonal time periods. We do not start calculating for the 1st of June. January, sorry, but calculate time periods for the date when the spring season starts on the 21st of March. So our 4 seasons are the 21st of March, 21st of June, 23rd of September, and the 22nd of December. That's from Gann's commodity course. But there's also the mid-seasons, and the mid-seasons are the ones that relate to the 15 degrees of our fixed signs. So we got May 5th, August 5, November 8, and February the 4th. Important changes in trends occur around these mid-season dates, but all of the above time periods should be watched for important changes in trend. This is what it looks like if you put it on a declination cycle on a graph. You can see that the sun, this is the sun's sine wave, okay, and we've got the when it crosses the equator, which is what's happening now at the equinox on the 21st of March, it's going northbound, so it's getting higher and higher until it reaches the 21st of June, which it reaches at 23.5 degrees, its highest declination in the sign of Cancer, and we have the Tropic of Cancer. You can see that on your maps. And then it starts going southbound again after it reaches its stations for 3 days. You can see it just standing still. That's a solstice. And then it starts going southbound again. And once it hits the equator again, in Libra, this is northern hemisphere I'm talking about, we get into autumn or the fall. The fall is because the sun falls below the equator, and as it keeps falling, it ends up going to Capricorn, or the Tropic of Capricorn, which is always looked upon as the grave. And that's why Jesus was there for 3 days and 3 nights before he was born again, reborn too. Okay, so we have the winter solstice here and the summer solstice there, and the 2 equinoxes, which means equal day, equal night. When we're in the tropics, it's like the big swings, you know, the complete difference in the hemispheres, so it's quite dramatic. And then again it starts going northbound again, and then it will cross again into March. So it continues to do this, and all planets have declination cycles. But everything has mutated to this cycle. I mean, if you think of it, I always do, if the Earth wasn't tilted to 23.5 degrees, we wouldn't have these seasons. We wouldn't have plants growing, animals, you know, their behaviors, our behaviors, everything, and growth of plants, everything grows. Nature responds to this cycle of the sun. So it is quite amazing when you think about it. So let's have a look now at what's happening at this Aries Ingress. I've located this one now. It's a little bit earlier here. It does happen earlier sometimes. On the 20th of March for New York, and I've put it on the dial so you can see, because the sun comes to 0 Aries, obviously it's going to be at our 0 point. And then we have planets in relationship to the sun, okay, equal distance. Now you can see that Mars is going to be square the sun, which is not a good omen, but also equidistance is going to be Chiron. Okay, so we're going to have some sort of wound, and we're going to have some sort of aggression here. Okay, volatility, and maybe something aggressive or volatile, and it's not soon after the ingress actually. Okay, because it's only 1 degree. So let's have a look at the other thing that's going to be very important, is that we have an exact mirror image here. We have Mercury and Venus conjunct, but also equidistance to, or antitia to, Neptune. Okay, that's going to be significant. I'll show you why. And also the moon is equidistance to Jupiter. But these are the ones that are more important. This is going to cause some sort of hostility and some sort of wound. And this one is going to cause, as I've written here, the sun, when it comes to the midpoint of Mercury and Neptune, the state of being deceived, lies and deceitful people, wrong thinking, faulty judgment, failures through incorrect behaviours, financial and banking scandals because of the Venus. So to me, that will, and you know, this is supposed to represent the whole year, the Aries Ingress. So it's going to be an ongoing saga here, and because it's the world at large, that means that the whole world, is going to be deceived in some way. Now the other thing is, Mars. It's just he's just gone into Capricorn, and if you remember if you listen to my Capricorn Ingress video that I put out last year, I mentioned that he'd be going out of bounds now. Out of bounds, I think I'll show you the chart in a minute. Let me go to this. You can see this is a declination cycle for the next 3 months, okay? The whole season. And you can see here the sun crossing the equator, so that's the equinox that we're looking at now. But can you see Mars? Mars is a red line. I've put in the Capricorn, so this is our Tropic of Capricorn, and you can see how he's just moved beyond slightly that point. So they say he's out of bounds, but only just slightly, okay? And then he moves away from that. He will return out of bounds later on. So when they're out of bounds, it means it goes beyond the limit of the sun. Well, we know that to be 23.5 degrees, and in that respect, that it becomes more maverick. So the hostility in the Mars becomes more aggressive. Okay, so he joins Capricorn and Pluto there in Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn, which, remembering, is our cold zone. And so that's going to just continue with, I believe, the weather patterns we're having each time the moon comes to that point as well. That will aggravate the cold conditions. Now the other thing we have to look at is this. We've got Mercury is going retrograde, is stationed retrograde here. Now if I go back for a minute, this, remembering that Neptune is creating a shadow image to Neptune, Mercury to Neptune, sorry if I said the wrong way. He's going to be, so Mercury's going to move backwards, retrograde, going to go through the degrees all the way back to 4 degrees of Aries, and then he's going to come back again. Okay, so all this ground will be made up. So he'll meet Saturn and then come back over Saturn. These are important things to know. But the fact that Mercury is in a relationship in a way with Neptune, who's the deceiver, we're not going to know the truth. When Mercury goes retrograde anyway, he becomes the trickster and the liar. You never get the correct information in that period. Okay, so the fact that it's also aligned with Neptune, it's just going to be complete lies. So we're going to have more fake news, or revelations of more fake news, more scandals, and that's going to continue because it's going to be, you know, Neptune's not going to move all that fast. We know that it's just been hovering in these mid degrees of Pisces, and we've got planets going around here. So be interesting to see how that pans out. You can sort of already maybe imagine what that might be. If I put it on the world map, the interesting thing is for me is that Neptune goes right over Washington DC. So do I need to say more about that? Maybe not. But we can see that Mars, because it was square the ingress, we can have a look at some of the Mars lines. Mars on the IC going through Africa and through Egypt and parts of Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe. Now Neptune, actually the planet that we're looking at, is also will be on the descendant going through Europe and London in there and parts of Africa. Now Neptune is also related to water because it's in Pisces. There could be more flooding or water or some sort of disaster going on there. Neptune on the IC here goes through Indonesia and some of China. Okay. The other one I wanted to look at was Mars on the midheaven goes through the Pacific. So I don't know if anything substantial happens there. But it will be interesting. But for me, it's the Neptune going over DC that is important because it's actually equidistance from, you can see the Sun, okay, and you can see Neptune's there, Mercury's on the other side, so be interesting. And you can see that the Mars and Saturn, which aren't the actually going descending on the descendant over Washington. Okay, so hostility and something to do with the government happening over there. So let's have a look at also, there was an interesting thing I saw here when I was just looking at this graph. You can see that the Sun, as it's going up northbound in declination, it will cross the Moon and Uranus here, so they'll be all parallel at that point, which is sort of just after mid-April. And then if you keep continuing, you will see that when the Sun gets to the summer solstice, we just to take a note where it is, and you see how that relates to the 23.5, but at the same time you can see that Mercury will be out of bounds at that time. So maybe the the lies and deceit will be in full focus around June, around the solstice. That will get maybe more information about that, what that is. Okay, so yeah, let's keep an eye on it, and we'll see what happens. So the next slide I've got is actually showing you the Mercury retrograde cycle, and you can see that here's where it's going to turn retrograde. Now it goes back all the way from, you can see 16 degrees all the way back to 4 degrees. Okay, so 4 degrees in Aries, and then it will come back and it retraces all those steps again. Okay, and that's when it crosses that point where it turned retrograde, we're out of its shadow period. Okay, so that's will be in May at some stage. So it will be interesting, these periods, as we know, when Mercury is retrograde and in its shadow whole time, is that we never get the truth, lies, and we have issues with lots of anything to do with communication and trade, because Mercury was the trader. He rules merchants, merchandise, trading, communication, rails, rails and any form of transportation, technology. So yeah, he's got a big rulership there. But remembering, because of his relationship with Neptune, that brings in, accentuates this shadow period to the max. So also, if you look at this is from my OMS Planetary Watch, which you can get from my website. I put out every year. The actual peak for March, you can see, is the 29th, is the intensity point for the March. So that's coming up. It'll be interesting to see. Now, what this does is actually gives us an indication where there's more probability of energy, like with the whole Eberton system, is that they believed only hard aspects make things happen rather than the soft aspects. So we'll see how that pans out, but usually there's some reversal. I mean, it can be really, it just indicates a possibility of a changing trend and something happening on a world level. So I hope you enjoyed that, and will be interesting to see how it all pans out, and thank you for listening.